let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Based on the title, today's topic will be a bit more serious. I'm going to talk about the bullying allegations of former G Idol member Seo Soojin. With 2 years passing by since the first accusations, I've always wanted to look into the case in depth, considering it being one of the more high profile cases for idols. I hope this video is kind of used to objectively inform people of the true nature of the case. The plan was to address each alleged victim with the aim to determine whether any of the allegations were true. There'll be a bit more of a personal analysis as well, and so there may be some bias based on what I know now. As a result, I will distinguish the fact and opinion on the top center of the video. Also, discussions may be had in the comment section from both sides, but this might be one of those videos where I will potentially delete or block comments if they become too toxic. We're allowed to see things differently, but if your response just turns nasty instead, that is definitely not the productive conversations I aim to have here. Also, there'll be things I've excluded, including more recountings for and against Soojin, the victims, and even Seo Shin Ae. I tried to condense the video to what I felt necessary to fully convey the case, just because the unmentioned stories mostly say the same things and also are unverified, so they don't really do much besides create more confusion. So without further ado, let's start off the video with the first alleged victim. The case actually starts early February on the 3rd, in which alleged victim A posts accounts of Soojin during middle school in which she committed school violence. Most of these alleged acts committed by Soojin are described by alleged victim C. The only distinct information brought by A would be an indirect reference to Seo Shin Ae. However, this post would later be deleted after netizens pointed out inconsistencies as well as phone capabilities that they claimed to not have to provide evidence. But when looking back at the year in which it took place, they actually had the capability. And so netizens thought that there was kind of no excuses. Then on February 12th, alleged victim B posted accounts of Soojin bullying them. This poster would also be criticized for lack of evidence, and so they left a final comment still committing to the story before this post was taken down. The allegations from the first post starting off with inconsistencies is not a good sign. Even though the claims get reinforced by other posts in the future, the bare minimum of valid allegations is having no inconsistencies. So just from this, I would personally lean towards A not being real, just because if A was brave enough to post anonymously, they shouldn't be afraid to clarify it anonymously. With that clarification of inconsistencies, I feel like there was clearly some issues. For B, it is kind of left up in the air since evidence is the only lacking thing despite being the most important thing. Can't just completely invalidate B's supposed experience considering there were no discrepancies and considering the long time that the acts could have occurred. Evidence would be hard to have. In saying that, they never resurfaced again, which is strange considering the tides switched mostly against Soojin. So could they have just felt like they were exposed for not being a victim and that's why we never heard from them? Wouldn't be too sure though. On February 21st, another alleged victim, C's sister, posted about Soojin's alleged bullying towards victim C. C would also come out to corroborate the story, but with more detail. I'll break down each act and which has been uncovered. Starting off, we have the actions that have been confirmed by both C and Soojin. Soojin has admitted to smoking. I'm not sure if this should be an issue as body autonomy, even if it's not the most healthiest thing for you. However, there is clearly a negative connotation to smoking. This clearly was just another way to spin a negative image to Soojin. C's sister saying Soojin admitted that she was in an undisclosed school violence committee, but they forgot to mention that she was cleared after being framed. They were all told this during the second meeting as the details were obviously private as it was undisclosed. However, C's sister would spin it using the ambiguity of attending a school violence committee as being guilty. As well as that, there was an established relationship in which they had great memories. The next allegation would just have some of it being confirmed, but the story does deviate between C and Soojin's side. So what's been confirmed is that a phone fight had occurred in which Soojin argued with C, which led to Soojin cussing out C. C's sister would then take the phone to scold Soojin. However, Soojin's take on this was her anger stemmed from having to wait and call C just to get a response, which was a constant pattern of C. C's sister would then scold her with cussing involved, in which Soojin would then apologize and hung up immediately. As for See's sister, she says that there was 2 other people cussing out See on the phone, and that Soojin coincidentally was the last person to cuss at See before See's sister took the phone. She was trying to get clarification on what was happening, so the call didn't end abruptly like Soojin stated. Also, in the call, she said initially that she cussed Soojin back and threatened to kill her and her friends, but then she would later take this back by denying it ever happened when Soojin brings it up. The retraction from C would make me more inclined to believe Soojin's recount, or at least most of it being true. I think that it would have painted a bad light for her if she admitted to cussing out Soojin and even claiming threatening to kill her and her friends. Also, technically C's sister was aware of what happened based on this phone call, so would that make her a bystander for not getting more justice sooner for her sister, considering she's been suffering to this day apparently, and to not consider collecting any evidence to defend her sister? The next actions were all unconfirmed, as it was brought up but only by one of them, but never elaborated or proven. C's further claims included stealing, drinking, slapping C, getting C to face slap with another girl, outcasting C, cursing people out, riding on a motorcycle with older guys, and the juice incident. These next allegations were just 100% proven wrong, despite C and her sister making claims of these. C's initial claim to developing thrombocytopenia was because of stress from Soojin's bullying, but C's sister would then claim that she actually developed this long after the alleged bullying, and that it was kind of more impacts. Then she began to speak vaguely about it before ultimately never mentioning it. Z also described an incident of being scolded by Soojin for laughing at an incident. Soojin would get help from alumni in that gym class to disprove this incident as well. The next actions occurred during the case and are just questionable things for me personally. Nothing to add to the case in terms of evidence, but more of an ethical and character look at C and her sister. It mainly focused on them just because they had the capabilities to speak out a bit more. C's sister would have a live stream in which many things happened. She would proceed to dance a small portion of Dum Dee Dum Dee, repeatedly mention celebrities and school violence like BTS didn't commit school violence, right? Talked badly about Soojin's family discipline, said Soojin can't sing, and said that it was a shame that she couldn't snap Soojin's neck in the past. It was the weirdness of playing G-Idol's music despite C getting emotional pains due to Soojin. So did that mean that C's sister just lacked empathy? Then there were low jabs about Soojin's family and her skills as an idol. You're in a legal dispute about bullying, but going around acting like that doesn't make her any better by doing the exact same thing. Another thing would be C's sister clarifying timeline mistakes she has made, but also complaining about how easily the public opinions can switch when netizens began questioning her about her careless wording in her live stream. The same public you complain about is the one you are trying to sway, and it's always when they question her that it becomes a problem. Quote unquote, I don't know why I have to explain and answer all of these questions and concern. That's a crazy statement to make considering she literally made accusations. So shouldn't there have been some understanding? You needed to be completely specific or people would just continue to question you. It's not just believe everyone. In her comments, she also claimed to have declined an invitation for meeting with Cuban Soojin as they wanted an admission of guilt before meeting up. This would then be changed to declining because Soojin wasn't present. This contradicts the article released about their meeting. Soojin denied the claims of school violence, making C question the purpose of the meeting. Like she said previously, everyone will remember it differently, and we have to discuss it in order to get it straight. So why would there be a presumption that everything C and her sister has said is correct? If you remain true to who you are, there would be no need to retract. But yeah, overall, this was the battle mostly between C's sister and Soojin, as C would stay out of it most of the time. I personally question C's sister more, and maybe that's because they were able to speak more, meaning they were able to get dissected more. Even with Soojin's 2 responses, the first one was dissected and even had inconsistencies, but were later clarified with the second post. C's sister, on the other hand, felt like an entitled alleged victim, surrounding herself with things that prove that without really care for justice. On the 21st of Feb, alleged victim D first posted on Twitter corroborating some of C's described acts, as well as claiming to have been slapped by Soojin, as well as her vandalizing their padded jacket with a marker. There was no contact happening between Cube, so they went to the reporters with their story with an expectation of an apology or admission to guilt. It wasn't until the 27th when inconsistencies were found in their claims. One instance was Soojin's class, in which they said they wrongly spoke about Soojin's class when she was actually in 3-2. Through screenshots of the text exchanged to the recent buyer of the defaced jacket, D aimed to get pictures of the 10-year-old mark that remained there. However, the buyer said that it had been washed a couple of times and disappeared. He would also incorrectly identify the name of the alleged friend that Soojin would visit, and the item number of the jacket being sold in the listings came from a 2019 jacket, when the jacket should have been in 2013. Thus, netizens in the comments wanted more clarification through D getting the buyer to send over the tag to verify just the jacket's manufacturing info. However, this would kind of be it, as they went radio silent after that. I mean, obviously there is no admission by D that they fabricated the story, but considering all the inconsistencies and yet they couldn't clarify it, and they even had the audacity to be this vocal about Soojin's case, to go to reporters even though their story had so many inconsistencies, like how can they even consider this fair? And there isn't even any repercussions faced because they remained anonymous despite basically being a fake victim. These types of people make it really hard for real victims because they ruin the validity through unnecessary made-up allegations. It may have seemed natural just to believe D, which further depleted Soojin's image. However, now looking at this through what we know now, Soojin had to face unnecessary added hate for things that were even made up. Seo Shin Ae was briefly mentioned by victim A, but vaguely in a way which it wasn't clear whether she was an alleged victim. She posted in her Instagram stories, "None of your excuses" in English. The timing of Seo Shin Ae's post led to speculations that the actress was addressing Cube Entertainment's initial statement denying the school violence. Seo Shin Ae would then indirectly post stories potentially vaguely taking shots at Soojin. This included a screenshot of Therefore I Am by Billie Eilish, in which the lyrics further confirmed the allegations of Soojin. However, after Soojin's final response denying ever speaking with Seo Shin Ae and asking her to speak up, she would then finally make a clear response, but still not directly naming Soojin, in which she claims Soojin constantly made groundless insults and personal attacks about her with her group of friends. She backs up Soojin's claim that they never spoke, but that was only because it was one-sided. From what I can see here, victim C started the fire, while Seo Shin Ae fueled the flames. She basically let Soojin take the fort just because of hearsay. I want to say if Seo Shin Ae was not involved, this would have stayed as he said she said, leaning more towards Soojin's side, as credibility for most of the alleged victims would decrease. Considering victim A and victim B were shut down by netizens for lack of evidence, plus still currently lack of evidence by just all the victims, Seo Shin Ae's celebrity status gave more validity to the bullying allegations, as it would make no sense for an actress to put her career on the line for false rumors. However, screenshots of a chat with Seo Shin Ae with a Neverland has weakened her credibility for me. Note that despite this being evidence for my point, I'm placing this in opinion just because this was kind of underreported despite being impactful evidence to shift the narrative for Soojin. In this screenshot, she claims to not know about Soojin being outcasted from the group of people bullying her. I know that it was a while ago, so people might not remember well, but to boldly just assume and make claims as if you knew for certain Soojin was part of that crowd is absolutely wild. Obviously, it wasn't her intent to ruin Soojin's career, but to have her and her agency ignore all of Cube's attempts to speak and resolve this issue just speaks to her hypocritical nature. It's like she didn't even want any resolution and instead allowed for the bullying to continue. Other victims would also come out to make posts too. However, the issues with these stories was that it never went anywhere, or there had been many fake victims that just lied to be malicious to Soojin. Some examples included one alleged middle school classmate posted to back up claims of bullying, the unofficial school violence committee for Soojin and her friends, rude behavior, and the fake friendship with C. However, netizens dissected the statements that would lead to them ultimately deleting the post due to backlash. An alleged text would then come out with the classmate saying that they lied and they were not sure of the proper facts. Regardless of whether the text was fake or not, the friendship with C was real, as confirmed by both parties. So that's one thing that was wrong. Also, they are another classmate to bring up the unofficial school violence committee without knowing the full story. She was not even found guilty and was actually found innocent despite this post trying to insinuate she was guilty. Netizens would then find another alumni that made a post about Soojin. However, they also found a post in 2017 claiming that they were actually a 34-year-old male, which meant that this was another fabricated victim, as their age difference clearly meant that they were not in the same school at the same time. Another 7 victims or witnesses also posted against Soojin, with netizens discovering them all using the same yearbook based on creasing and writing to validate that they went to the same school as Soojin. And Soojin also had email receipts disproving one claim of being rude during a graduation dance. These constant lies to further incriminate Soojin is why I lean more towards Soojin's side. Not saying that because of these posts they should invalidate the other alleged victims. However, I do wonder what the purpose of these were. As well as that, one-off statements by alleged students would come out, but they would also constantly contradict one another. One claimed that Soojin called Seo Shin Ae ugly while visiting her class. Another claimed that Seo Shin Ae was not completely innocent. And then another claimed Soojin and Seo Shin Ae weren't even in the same school when that ugly comment was made. And then another claimed that Seo Shin Ae was stuck up and rude and even smoked too. Using critical thinking, this just screams red flags in that you can't believe everything you hear. Imagine if we removed all the negative things about Seo Shin Ae in those one-off statements. Soojin being a bully seems more credible even if there's no proper evidence, right? Well, that's basically how the media has been operating when reporting her case. We constantly hear a lot of victims come out with very minimal attention focused on the amount of liars fueling the bullying allegations, as well as the proper support from friends and classmates posting on the same internet that some people are easily eating up all the fake lies or allegations with lack of evidence without an ounce to consider neutrality or even critical thinking. Imagine someone donating money and we'd see a few comments commending them. However, now picture a bullying allegation gets posted and bam, you get flocked with hundreds and thousands of hungry stans ready to comment, nitpick, and attack each other. Society thrives on negativity, and that's just the reality. But it also explains why, despite there being many close friends and classmates voicing their support for Soojin, it was overshadowed by the negativity of the bullying image that had been created for Soojin. Many old friends would also make posts in different social medias in defense of her, stating that she was not the type of person that the allegations described. Some say that she was neither good, neither bad, and that the allegations seemed exaggerated. As well as that, a really close middle school friend would also come out in defense of her in regards to Seo Shin Ae, claiming to have been so tight-knit that the misconception that she was involved in that ex-friend group was not correct, and that the real perpetrators and Soojin had drifted away around the same time that Seo Shin Ae moved to their school. If questions arise to the validity of these posts, the questions should also be spun around and reversed to cast doubt on why we also seem to believe these alleged victims blindly too. How are we easily able to believe some but not take others seriously even though they technically have the same weighting and not really providing evidence? With most of her support, none of it has had any inconsistencies, and yet we find inconsistencies left and right with the alleged victims. Soojin is ultimately forced to either admit guilt or provide evidence for something she did not commit. We would not get another update until August 14th, in which Cube announced the departure of Soojin from G-Idol. This would be one of Soojin's biggest downfalls, as this would be held as another supposed solid evidence that people in support of the victims would use. Due to Soojin's statement stating that she would leave the group if she ever did anything wrong, people took this departure as an indirect guilty verdict without much critical thinking. If she did nothing wrong, why would she have to leave, is what many people thought. However, if you take a quick look into Cube in 2021, G-Idol was the face of Cube and the moneymaker. Coming off the hit of Hwa, it is likely that Cube wanted to quickly resolve this without inflicting more negative attention to their reputation. However, with the little progress in resolving this issue, leaving G-Idol in a hiatus would have impacted Cube financially, and thus they ditched her as a liability and G-Idol could continue as 5. Along with that, March 5th, 2022 would then see the termination of Soojin's contract with Cube. In Cube's statement, they announced that the police investigation had resulted in a not guilty verdict for the accusers, and thus they made an apology for causing concern. This would further add to the villainization of Soojin, as the supposed victims being not guilty implied to many people that they were innocent. However, if you look more into the justice system, not guilty doesn't mean you're innocent. It just means that Soojin's team was not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the supposed victims spread false rumors with intent. This makes more sense since there is no really strong evidence considering all of this happened 10 years ago. Same implications of leaving G-Idol would be felt too, in that terminating Soojin's contract implied a level of guiltiness. However, the more likely reason was that allegations were still not fully cleared, so Cube could either continue to fight for Soojin and thus negative perceptions would continue to linger, or they could just completely remove Soojin because it'd be the easiest to remove her, as well as that she was already not involved with the G-Idol too, so what's the point, I guess? And that is obviously what they chose. The most likely final response would be on September 8, 2022, in which Soojin's legal representatives updated everyone on their future plans. The main takeaways were that she was found not guilty by the school's Autonomous Committee for School Violence Countermeasures, but was instead found to be a victim from bullying from other seniors. Police stated that allegations can be true in both perspectives, and also there was no intent for fraud from the victim. Thus, the conflicting statements from both sides can only be proven by definitive evidence to legally prove either side. Because of this reasoning, there was a limit to seeking truth through legal means, and thus explains her decision not to pursue the lawsuit any further. Once again, doesn't prove that Soojin was guilty. However, this personally skews my perception into thinking Soojin is a bit more innocent. There is such a low percentage to be considered both a victim of bullying as well as a perpetrator. The police statements further clarify why this case wouldn't properly go through. No matter how inconsistent we may find other victims, this also does not mean that some of the allegations that have yet to be proven wrong are wrong. Ultimately, definitive evidence is required to end this all. C has never brought any substantial evidence to prove any of her claims. Soojin also has not been able to provide enough evidence to completely rule her out. So we're all left at a stalemate in which allegations stay allegations. Final thoughts. There has not been a proper single evidence that validifies Soojin as a bully. I personally would believe Soojin is leaning more towards the innocent side just because there's been too many inconsistencies in the accusations brought forward. It's either been proved false or there's just a lack of evidence provided to properly justify the vilification of Soojin. Legally, she should be deemed innocent until victims can provide definitive evidence. However, K-pop culture and just general society forces her to defend and provide evidence that things that she believed didn't happen. The initial accusations of victim A and B were handled well, with the dogpiling on Soojin using emotional manipulation as their tool to sway the public. Obviously, you never want to believe that victims make stuff up like this, but considering we've had multiple instances of fake victims, as well as we've also experienced a lot from former AOA's Shin Jimin, former Stray Kids Kim Woojin, and even former Le Serafim's Kim Garam's case, that not everything is as it seems. Even the lawyer of C has said blind support has a bad effect on society. I know that this quote was more in reference to the blind support from Netherlands, but this also fits perfectly with C and her sister, as the new system of approach is also harmful. The real question is, how many lives are we going to continue to ruin over fake allegations? Is there no more remorse or even empathy? Why do we continue to let this happen? To allow stans to go full ham with attacking anyone without an ounce of critical thinking or neutrality? Can you not see the hypocrisy in that you are who you are fighting against, apparently? But yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about this case after hearing the relatively full case. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.